All right, welcome back to the best damn training channel on YouTube. Today is going to be one of my last heavy sessions for the bench press before we get into our final testing period. What I'm going to do is build up to something that's close to a 1 rep max. So try to be around like that RPE 9.5. But we're not going to do the bench press reps test until we go into our final testing period here after next week's taper. So what I've been doing this week so far, yesterday I did 3 heavy singles on a power clean, and I did 170, 175, and then 170 again. I went to back squat, did a heavy double around like a 9 RPE on that. I feel like I could have gotten probably 3, maybe 4 reps on that. So I'm gonna use that double at 230 for estimated 1 rep max. So when I get into strictly strength, I've got kind of a good solid area where I can base my percentage work off of. Today is going to be my last heavy bench press day before I do my 225 test. If today is going to be a good day, we're going to go for the 1 rep max. If not, we've got a backup plan where we can do that on the testing week and we'll hit a true 1 rep max and some reps after that. So I'm going to go through the entire bench press session with you guys today. My warm-up sets with the barbell, how I'm progressing this, what I'm thinking as I'm going through everything, and we're just gonna load it up and see how heavy we go today. So I'm gonna try to stick this on the corner here. And then hopefully you guys can hear me pretty well because I don't want that mic up in my throat while I'm doing bench press here. So we're gonna throw on 70 kilos. And just to be safe, I'm gonna raise these up 1 more. If I go for a full send and I don't get it today, I wanna make sure I don't die here alone underneath the barbell, although that would be a pretty legit way to go. I'm warming up. I'll start off probably with 5s, drop myself down to 3s, do some doubles, and then when I get close to somewhere around 85%, I'll probably just start hitting singles and building up until I hit to something that's going to be a 1 rep max for the day. And then also let's test this out real quick. All right, so if I fail, I will be pinned here, and this will be a little bit tricky to get out of. But at least I'm not going to absolutely crush myself. Oh, okay. That's probably going to be my last set of 5. We'll go up to 120 and we'll do a couple 3s. And then when we get around 145, 150, we'll probably just start knocking out some really good singles and building up towards that heavy one today. I gotta tell you right now, my chest is not sore, but it's tight. And the reason I think it's tight is because golf's on Monday. So I've been going to the golf simulator every Monday, and for whatever reason, like that swing, I can always feel that in my chest after I go golfing. And I think one, it's just because I'm a bad golfer and I swing way too incredibly hard. So chest just feels a little stiff. It's not too bad. I just need to get better at golf. All right, I decided to make the jump to 140, and we're gonna start doing some singles here. We got a solid ass 160 on the bar right now. I'm gonna try to punch this through the roof as we go. Oh yeah, we're cruising. 170. I thought about jumping straight to 180, but I felt like 175 would be a little bit smarter of a move. Let's go. 175. I'm gonna call that my last rep for the day for my heavy singles. It's well above 90%, puts me into the stimulus that I'm looking for. I don't feel like a 185 or a 190 is gonna be there today. I probably would hit 180. And when I maxed out a couple weeks ago, I think I hit 182, and that one felt really good. So rather than burying myself a little bit more by trying to do one more heavier rep, that's not really going to be more beneficial than what I just did. I'm gonna call that there. I'm gonna go into my taper, feel really good, and then we're gonna fucking hammer it in 2 weeks when we do the testing week. And we'll probably hit a 185 to 190 on that if all things go as planned, which I am expecting them to do. So 185, 190 is gonna be the goal. I'm gonna go on to some pen lay rows now. We're gonna load these up and just start yanking the bar off the ground and just go heavy on this. It's not meant to be sexy. It's not meant to be like the most strict form, the most optimal way to do a pen lay row. I'm just looking at moving heavy loads this week and trying to create a high stimulus. So we're gonna probably do somewhere around 150, 160. Just pick that bar up and yank it towards the chest. 2 to 3 sets on that total, and then we'll move on to some accessory work for the day, which is going to be focused on hitting the shoulders, maybe do a little bit of bis and tris to end today's session. So I'm gonna take a moment here, put all the weights away, set up for the pen lay row, and then we're gonna get after it. I'll tell you what, the optimal lifting bros are about to fucking hate this set here. But like I said, not looking to be perfect. I just want to lift heavy this week because next week we're going into a taper and we're gonna feel real good. And then we're gonna go into our testing week and we're gonna put up some elite numbers. So I'm gonna do probably 2 sets on this. And I'm gonna just put on 160. Do a set of 4 to 5, just trying to yank this thing off the ground. And we're just gonna get straight into it. 120 felt really good. So 4 to 5 here, and I'm still using a powerlifting bar when I do this, because if I were to use the weightlifting bar, it's got a little bit more flex into it. I want that bar to be a little bit more stiff, especially when doing something like a pen lay row, because I don't want to have that first initial pull kind of be the bar flexing prior to moving the weight off the ground. So doing deadlifts, doing any kind of like rowing variation from the ground, so whether it's pen lay off the ground or pen lay off the blocks or whatever it might be, I like to use a stiffer bar. That way it feels like it's challenging me a little bit more. If I have that flex in the bar, you end up getting that initial pull, and then the bar has a little bit of like a whip factor to it where it's gonna assist you, not a ton, but it's gonna make it feel like it's moving a little bit easier. So a lot of times when I'm going heavier on a pen lay row, I'll use a stiffer bar. If I'm going a little bit lighter on a pen lay row, then I don't think the bar matters too much. I think when the weight starts getting really heavy is when, if you're using a stiff bar or if you're using a flexing bar, then you'll really feel the difference. So today I'm just gonna keep it stiff. Use a powerlifting bar. One more set on those. I think that's gonna be good. So when you're getting into like a peaking block like we've been in, this is week 3 of peaking, and then we're gonna go into essentially an 8-day taper. When you're going into that peak, the majority of the volume is going to be on week 1, and then you're breaking the volume down as the intensity of the load goes up. So volume being total number of sets and reps is gonna be higher in week 1. The number of sets and reps goes down in week 2, but the percentages that you're hitting is gonna go up, and then the sets and reps on week 3 should be minimal compared to week 1, and the intensity should be maximal compared to week 1. So 90% plus on the majority of your lifts for that week 3, and you only need to hit 1 to 3 total sets or 1 to 3 total repetitions at that 90% plus range in order to create the stimulus you're looking at doing, because what we're trying to do is create a set of fatigue where you have your stress recovery adaptation, so your SRA curve, let's say this baseline right here is going to be your normal, like that's homeostasis. That's where you're flatlined at. That's where you feel good. You're recovered. You're ready to train. You're a 10 out of 10 on like how you feel in terms of just overall well-being, readiness to train, everything. You go through your peak. You're starting to create a high amount of fatigue. You're hitting multiple reps within a week at 90% above. So you're down at that bottom where you've created stress. Then you go into your taper, which is going to allow you to get to that recovery. So your curve for stress turns into a curve for recovery. And your baseline's here. So we've created stress over the last 3 weeks. Next week, when we go into the taper, we're gonna be hitting stuff at like 50%, 60% at most. Maybe on the bench press, we might go up to about 65, 70%, but we're probably gonna be around that 50 to 60%. That's going to allow us to get that recovery. And then what happens is you've peaked, you've tapered, you get that super compensation where that adaptation comes, and now you're above what your previous baseline was at. And this is where your personal bests happen. So we're creating that stress. Next week, we're gonna go into that recovery phase. When we go into our testing week, we're gonna be hoping to be above our original baseline, where we have that super compensation, we have some adaptation coming through, and that's where personal bests, big lifts, fast sprint times, big jumps, all of that happens up here. But you don't stay up here. What usually happens is you kind of dip back down a little bit, and eventually you do that enough times over the course of 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 months, and you've created that stress and recovery adaptation, stress recovery adaptation. That baseline starts to go up a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, and that's what we call progress. That's the idea for the peak into the taper, into that recovery adaptation phase. Hopefully going to be hitting some really big lifts and some really fast sprint times when we get into our testing week. And the testing week will happen after the taper. In a taper week, we're not going to just be doing like 3 sets of 3 at 50%. We're probably going to be doing like 4 to 5 sets of 1 to 3 reps at that 50, 60% range on most of our lifts. And we're gonna be trying to move everything really fast, make everything feel really crisp. Nothing should feel like it's heavy at all. So 50 to 60% on most of those lifts is going to allow us to create a lot of velocity on the bar, to keep the nervous system kind of firing a little bit, but not too much where that recovery and adaptation doesn't happen. And then we go into testing week after the taper is over, and that super compensation and that adaptation should allow us to have some really big lifts when it comes towards the end of that phase. And then we move on to strictly strength, where we're going to be doing essentially a powerlifting-esque type training program, focusing on the squat, the bench, the deadlift, but a lot of it's going to be focused on accessory work, kind of trying to build up like foundational strength. My idea is that strictly strength is going to be a program that people can start on before they get into like the Unit 2.0 program or into the Unit Combine program. If they don't know where to start, strictly strength is going to be like your foundation program where you can build up your baseline of level of fitness. There's going to be a baseline level of strength, and then you can carry that into one of the athletic programs of Unit 2.0 or Haas Unit or the Unit Combine program. So that's the focus for the next program as well. But that's the idea, and that's why we're trying to just lift heavy, because I'm just picking up heavy stuff, creating that stress, and then we're going to recover and adapt from it over the next 10 to 14 days after this. And then last thing we're going to do today is just get a little bit of a pump in the shoulders. So I'm going to do some lateral raises to like a 1 rep in reserve, 2 rep in reserve type range, and then go straight into bent over reverse flies, keeping that same reps in reserve range. So just kind of pump it out, not worried about how much weight we're lifting, just want to get a good feel. And then probably do 2 sets on that and call it good. So that's gonna be it for today's session. I appreciate you guys watching. Make sure to like, make sure to subscribe, and I'll catch y'all on the next one.